Okay, for the 80th time, I'm going to try to make a video of what I look for when I am inspecting the tank just on a daily basis. I'm just going to look at it real quick to make sure that it's functioning right. This is the things that I usually check. First, I check the aqua controller faceplate here. You'll see a couple numbers on here. You got the temperature right there and the pH right there. This pH number 2 right down here, that's not hooked up to anything. It's just coincidence that right now they're both the same. This number means nothing, and this amps doesn't really mean anything. Alright, I have the temperature programmed on the tank to fluctuate between 76 degrees and 78 degrees. If the temperature is above 78 degrees, it's not the end of the world. It just means it might be warm in the house or it's a warm day and the temperature's just up. Especially in the summertime, it'll be higher. If it gets above 80, 81 degrees, then you might start to worry. You can fix that just by turning the lights off or down. Off would just be easier. And then when the temperature goes back down, you can kick them back on. The pH, and then if the temperature is too cold, around 75.8 or 0.9, it's not to worry. The heater's probably just kicked on. But if it's around 75, 74, or even lower than that, the heater's probably failed, and it's probably kind of cold in the house, which means you might have to buy a new heater to replace it. pH, on the other hand, 8.3 is actually pretty perfect for what you want the aquarium pH to be. Anywhere in between about 8.1 to 8.5, the tank should be just perfect. Anything above 8.5, you're looking at, just without getting too technical, if you turn the lights off for an hour or so, it should drop. And also, if there's excess algae buildup, you could scrape it off. It'll help lower the pH. If the pH is too low, you can add some of this marine buffer right here. It will help to raise the pH as that safely raises. Get it focused. Safely raises and maintains pH to 8.3. So if it's below 8.1, you can add some of this according to the directions here, and it'll raise the pH. But I'll talk about that more in writing. Next thing I check is just to make sure that the feeder has food in it. If you pull on this cover, it could pop the cover off, so be careful. When you pull the whole thing out, just kind of put your fingers on here and hold the device and then pull. Just kind of wiggle it back and forth, and this whole tube pops out. You can see the food is all in there. It just works by spinning. The cover of this thing just pops right off. And then check it every week or so. Make sure there's still food in it. Just put the flakes in, kind of grind them up a touch, and then just make sure this thing pops back on. Make sure it's nice and snug, or else it'll all spill out. And that should just slide right back into place. This little orange dial right here is for the food. This way is more food, this way is less food. I'll have it all dialed in by the time I leave, so you shouldn't really have to mess with it. Then just look at the overall tank. Is there a bunch of algae growing? There's some weird algae. There was some red algae down here, but I just used this scraper thing here with the little teeth on it. Just picked it up out of the tank. And then any algae, you can scrape off with this thing right here. I check the fish to make sure they're acting normal, healthy, not doing anything weird like sucking for air at the top of the tank, or they don't have any weird white spots or growth on them. So that can indicate they're stressed. Now check the corals, make sure all the soft corals like this, all the polyp looking guys, they're all open and extended. Make sure that guy right there is looking colorful. If they start to look like those down there, which are pretty much dead, there's white skeleton showing, that means it's probably dying. Those corals are more difficult to take care of, so if we lose it, then it's not a huge loss. Also, when the polyps go bad, they kind of look like this thing down here. That's kind of all shriveled up and nasty looking, so I don't think that's going to survive. I don't know what did that in. But yeah, just look at the tank, make sure it's working, make sure the pumps are on and the water's flowing well. Next thing I do is go down to the sump, and I'll look over here at the filter stock. The filter stocks are actually full right now. I do need to replace them. You'll notice when they're full, I'll pop this back in real quick. It won't be that, but when it's full, the water level in that area will start to rise. It'll rise up and up and up. As you can see, it's doing very slowly. It'll get to about here, and when that happens, the water is pooling up here, and not down here where it should be, so this water level starts lowering and lowering and lowering, and eventually you'll see that the auto top-off system will kick on because it'll register too much not enough water in the tank because it's all sitting up here, and it'll actually change your salinity. So make sure that these filter socks get changed on a timely basis. If they're filling up, just replace them. I'll buy some new ones before I leave. For this refugium, I don't really do anything with it. Just make sure the heater's on and working. It should be. That heater always has to be submerged. If the heater's plugged in, do not take it out of the water. It will explode in your hand. It will not be good. Right now you can see that there's a lot of green grass in there. I'm going to cut this back before I leave, and it shouldn't be an issue. Alright, the next thing you're going to want to look for is to make sure that the water level is pretty much halfway through the Smart ATO. That's where it reads where the what the proper water level is. Back here you can see the box for it, and there's a pamphlet in the box, so if it's beeping at you or there's some lights other than the solid green or flashing green going on here, you know, but that up and it'll tell you what's going on. Most of the time if you unplug it or turn it off via the app, plug it back in, it should fix any errors, or you can just kind of clean the glass on either side and make sure there's no algae or bubbles or anything caught in there. The next thing is the protein skimmer. It probably demands the most attention of all of the pieces of equipment. This thing should be checked daily, if not multiple times a day. Just look in, make sure it's working, and close the door. Nothing crazy. I like to have the bubbles set at about a quarter of the way up the cup. That might be a little bit low right there, but you can just change it by adjusting this dial over here. I'm sure you've done it before. And then if the collection cup gets full, empty it and make sure it's working right. These bubbles should be nice and really cloudy. Should look like you can't see anything, just a bunch of white foam is really what you're looking for. Recently it's been acting up a little bit where the water looks more clear. The bubbles are really big, and it just looks like there's a few bubbles in the water column, not just a whole pile of bubbles. And when you do that, you have to, if it does that, you can unplug it, plug it back in. If not, you have to disassemble the whole thing. That's a pain in the butt. So I might make a video of how to disassemble it, reassemble it. The main pump should be fine unless it comes detached from the return tube, and I'll put a switch in for that, so if it happens you'll know real quickly, but it shouldn't go disastrous. This thing here, just give it a shake every now and then. You'll see some bubbles come up out of it, and that just keeps the granules stirring so you don't get any channeling. And lastly, just check the water level in here. I like to fill it all the way up, let it go pretty much all the way, almost to the all the way down, not quite, then fill it all the way back up again. It'll hold about 10 gallons total, so when you refill you're doing about 8 gallons, so make sure you have quite a bit of water on hand when you're refilling this, if you choose to do it by that method. Most of that mess right there, I'm going to try to clean it up a little bit before I go, but you shouldn't have to mess with that at all. If you do, all the ports and everything are labeled, and if it's really a mess, we might just have to do it over the phone sometime. That's about it for what I just checked. Once you get used to it, it'll take you 30 seconds to check all those things. Just kind of look everything over, make sure it's running the way it should, and then just go about your business.